How did I end up here? Lying in your arms, watching city lights burn the stars.
A full decade. Holy shit. I think it's kind of funny that my channel shares a significant anniversary with Pokemon, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Overwatch. 3 series that mean so much to me and I consider the pillars of my channel. It's even funnier in Overwatch's case, considering that also Xenoblade being a thing for a decade this year. The actual quality of those last 2 celebrations aside, it's rather incredible, isn't it? When I say I never expected to still be doing this after 10 years, I kinda mean that. There have been a number of times in the past where I've considered piecing out because I either felt myself falling out of love with this very time-consuming hobby for various reasons, or in fleeting major down periods. However, these days I can't possibly see myself doing anything other than this for one of my primary hobbies. Perhaps that's the sunk cost fallacy talking at this point, but rest assured I do still enjoy this very much. With exceptions, but I will talk about those here. What I wanted to do here was, well, give a sort of behind the curtain look at my channel, which includes talking a lot about the videos I've uploaded over the years, kinda duh, what the process was like working on them and such, maybe talk about some ideas that never saw the light of day, and perhaps even teasing some projects I want to work on in the future. Sound good? I hope it does, because you belong to me now, bitch. So to start, my channel name, Lunar Odyssey. I really wish I had some kind of cool story behind why I chose this name for the channel, rebranding from the All-Star Gamer, which was a rebrand from the Mega Lucario Knight, but there isn't. I just thought the name sounded cool when I chose it, and clearly I deemed it good enough because it's still the name of this channel, so I really don't know what to say. Luna has just become my online identity as a whole, and even has bled through into real life, where my friends literally just refer to me as Luna. Not my real name, which is Jonathan, but Luna. I'll refer to them by their real names, but I'm just Luna to them. Honestly, this is because up until we met in person, they've been calling me Luna for so long that it just kind of stuck. Plus, Luna's a far cooler name than Jonathan, or just John anyway, because of how generic the latter is, so there's something. Onto the in-depth stuff now. I migrated to PC for gaming in 2023 after my close friend Akise ever so kindly sent it to me, and I've only recently started paying it back for. I wonder if he's charging inflation on it. Probably shouldn't put that idea out in the world, but if you're wondering about my specs, then here they are. It is pre-built, there's no way my dumbass was going to put one together, so maybe these specs could be way better, but it works, and that's enough for me. To be fair, it is loud sometimes, and things can struggle, but if you've ever spent enough time on PC, you eventually come to hate the idea that optimization is a myth, even at a base level. Before this PC, I was editing on one of those built-in PCs with like 4 gigs of RAM. It was a piece of shit. It took like 20 minutes to sign in towards the end of my use of it. I genuinely don't know how I ever got anything done on it. When it comes to making all of my videos, I record everything on PC with GeForce Experience, which I assure you totally works great all the time. To be fair, it's been more stable lately, but I probably just jinxed myself by saying that out loud. And I also use it to record my audio, which I have a HyperX Quadcast S for, which was an incredible Christmas gift from Akise, and any other shots you may see, like of my room or me in the shower, are recorded on my phone, which is a Samsung Galaxy S20 that was ever so graciously gifted to me by somebody I used to know. By the way, for the shots where I'm physically in frame, it's my mum who's the one holding the phone. A few times I've had to wonder what she thinks of me there and then, but I imagine it's somewhere between absolute bewilderment and utter disappointment. Honestly, I'm far from professional with my equipment. I don't exactly have the budget for a high-end camera or studio level mic, but here's the thing. You don't need all of that. As long as you at least have a phone with a decent enough camera, or maybe the lower quality is intentional, then you can just start making stuff. There's no barrier for entry for creativity after all. I mean, look at me, I was making crappy slideshow top 10s and Movie Maker with walls of text a decade ago, so you know they'll let anyone in. As for editing, I do all of that in Filmora. As just alluded to, it wasn't always done in Filmora. I used to work in Movie Maker back in the day before Windows decided to kill it off for no reason. I guess it was too powerful for Windows 10 to handle. Regardless, Filmora is my current editing program, and has been for close to 6 years now, so in other words, for the majority of the time I've been on YouTube. While it gets the job done for me, it's by no means the best editing software out there. There are little quirks about it that I've come to hate over time, and each subsequent very frequent update needs another update soon after to fix bugs introduced in the last update because consistent stability just doesn't exist, so yeah, that's really cool. Plus, like any Solus thing, it's been leaning more and more into AI editing tools in the past few years, of which I avoid like the plague, by the way, so rest assured, nothing in my vids is AI altered, but put an asterisk next to that for the moment, I'll address it in a second. The mere presence of AI BS is enough to get on my nerves, but you know those very frequent updates I mentioned? Well, surprise surprise, they're for the AI features. And they break often. making the whole experience a slog half the time because it's just bloating the software and makes it run worse as a result. Despite the presence, however, I can still edit my videos in the way I always have done. It just can be a little harder sometimes now as projects get larger and the program starts to lag after a while. Plus, it is just way more affordable than the alternative at the moment. I'd rather pay like 50 wongas a year than like 40 wongas a month. That's just basic economics or whatever. It also bothers me how a lot of things like certain effects, transitions, filters, and even stock media are locked behind a subscription paywall. You know, I think I hate it for more and more than I actually like it. Capitalism is so cool, it just inspires creativity! So anyway, yeah, that's usually where the magic happens, and I'll be upfront with you about the AI usage thing. There have been 2 cases on the channel when it has been used. Well, a few more than 2, but those other examples are literally good old text-to-speech Daniel. Ah, the good old days. The examples I'm talking about are 1, an April Fool's video of an interaction between the characters of Elizabeth Afton and William Afton from the Five Nights at Freddy's series, where it just kind of messed around for a couple of minutes. And 2, where I used AI to try and remove background noise from my video where I played through Sonic Racing Crossroads on release, namely how loud my PC was being that day and how it was picking up in my mic. While that FNAF April Fool's video is no longer up on the channel because I felt uncomfortable about having used AI voiceover for the characters of the actual voices, I do still have it as a sort of reminder not to do that again. At the time, I thought it mostly harmless, but as time went on and AI became more unfortunately prevalent to the point of actually threatening jobs in the creative field, including voice acting, which led to the whole SAG-AFTRA thing, yeah, I took it down. I'm really sorry for even having to put it up in the first place. As for the Crossroads thing, yeah, I ain't doing that again. Not only did it make the project run like a steamroller being controlled by a primal Groudon, but it just didn't sound great in the end. Honestly, it probably would have sounded better if you could hear the PC having a moment throughout the whole thing. That way, at least you'd be immersed in the experience that I was having. Kind of going back to the editing here for a moment, I want to say that not everything makes it through the editing process, or even to the process in the first place. I don't mean where Furore corrupts the project or anything like that, though it has stalled exports a few times in the past for no reason. No. I mean that ideas just don't come to fruition sometimes. This happens rarely with me, mind you. I am a stubborn bastard with a relentless sunk cost fallacy work ethic, but if I'm ever not feeling something there and then, I'll either put it on hold or scrap it entirely. Admittedly, I always hate when this happens. It's rare, just to emphasise that, but when it does happen, it can be very demoralising and even heartbreaking to myself in a way. The biggest example of this I can think of, made worse by the fact I specifically mentioned it to be happening, a way to get myself to lock in basically, is a review on Opus Echoes of Starsong. I teased this in the games that made my 2024 better video to be happening in the then upcoming March 2025. Come March 2025 and it never appeared. That's because I found that in the writing process, I just didn't have the heart for it. See, if my motivation is not there for something I want to be as best as possible, which is how I treat all my videos, then the next course of action is to scrap it. No video is better than a half-hearted one in my eyes. Echoes of Starsong was a beautiful game and, I don't know, I felt like it deserved a lot more than what I could have given it in that moment. Unfortunately, I don't see myself resuming work on it anytime soon because I think it would require a fresh playthrough first off, and I'm always weirdly hesitant about playing through games I've already played through before, especially in recent years, and I feel like there's just other things I could be doing instead, like focusing on other videos. Of course, Echoes of Starsong is far from the only video to be scrapped, but considering how large of an elephant in the room it was to address, you get why I'm focusing on it so much here. Then, even though it was never mentioned, I had the idea for a lore video on the Little Nightmares series in October of last year because the third game was releasing that same month, and I wanted to celebrate it because I really love the series. Obviously that never happened, and the lore video I did for 2025 went on to be something else. That's because as I started thinking more about it, I realised it wouldn't make sense to do what would essentially be an incomplete and potentially outdated lore video by the time LM3 released, so I thought to wait instead. Only to then hear that LM3 wasn't exactly stellar and quite a departure from what made Little Nightmares so good. Yeah. Next, while not exactly a single video here, rather a bunch of them, at the beginning of this year, I thought as a way to celebrate my channel's upcoming 10th anniversary, I would go all in on written essay-like videos. 10 essays throughout the year with some breathing room throughout. The tentative 10 I was going to call it or something. But here we are in July and I've only put out one of those videos I was planning to do, the Magical Girls Are Pretty Cool video. No joke, this one made me rethink that whole idea. Like, I'm not one for underestimating work. I tend to overestimate everything, but Elysium above, I was not prepared. The research process, the writing, the editing process, it was a lot for little old me, which I did expect. I have done big videos before, such as the movie-length Overwatch 2 retrospective back in 2024, but I won't lie, that retrospective is why I'm cautious about approaching new long-form written videos these days, which is why only one was released between it and the Magical Girls video, that being the My Side review, which I will talk about soon, to be fair. Like, it was a lot, but I generally thought I was ready to get back into written projects again for this year, but as for the process the Magical Girls vid, I am not built for this. I see now why essay-based deep dive channels tend to have infrequent upload times. Speaking of upload schedules, mine is semi-regular. I try to aim for maybe one video a week, but there are exceptions to that rule, especially when I'm working on bigger videos. But being real, the schedule I hold myself to is rather loose. I have the it's done when it's done mindset, but I will set a rough due date in my head for me to get my act together and push it back or occasionally bring it forward if need be. I try my best to always have something to work on, be that of a meme vid or whatever, which is down to me being a workaholic. In prior years, this was bad. I had a brief period in 2022 where I overworked myself into burnout because I was just always thinking about this, unable to even enjoy the first few hours of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 at the time without thinking about content. Being real, it was a rough couple of months there for a few reasons, the burnout being a major one. These days, however, I know how to better pace myself, so there's no need to worry. Getting back on topic regarding the Magical Girl video putting me out, do not misunderstand, I do not hate it. I honestly really like how it turned out, even if what I'm saying can be a little hard to follow with all the overwatching going on in the background. That doesn't stop me from holding it solely responsible for my plans falling through though. A shame too, because the next long form written video was going to be on Kasane Teto in a similar style. And still will happen. Teto Day is October 10th, by the way, hint hint. Staying on the topic of scrapped ideas, I want to make mention of what I refer to as the pillars of the channel. Pokemon, Five Nights at Freddy's, Overwatch, Xenoblade Chronicles, Vocaloid, and Sonic the Hedgehog. These are the series that really mean the most to me and have always had some kind of at least semi-significant presence on the channel in some way or form. Obviously, that means videos. But I will admit, there are a couple here that I find harder to approach, those being FNAF and Xenoblade. Now, I wouldn't ever consider not considering them pillars, but for the type of videos those series invite, notably theories and speculation, I'm not exactly the smartest guy out there. Look, I just have to point to the absolute shambles of vids that were my theorising leading up to the release of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that were more fanfics than anything, but I kind of discovered through that I wasn't built for that type of content. That's not to say there isn't still stuff I could do instead, like tackling fan games for the FNAF side of things, or leaning into the memes and shitposts more, but regarding the former's case, I am downright terrible at the micromanaging hells that are the FNAF mainline games and fan games, which is typically why I only play them in the free-for-all series, but more as demos, except Five Nights at Freddy's 3 back in April, but only because I felt it deserved a solo video. I did go on to beat it in my own time, but only on easy mode, and repeat playthroughs, still on easy, for different endings met me with a security door. You kind of see my issue in this regard for why I feel they're difficult to make stuff for, but rest assured, I do intend to resume Xenoblade content a little in the run-up to Genesis next year, not only for Genesis mind you, and I do have something FNAF related planned for October, namely an own fanfic reading, akin to my reading of Hololive at Reality's End. It won't be as long though, hopefully. And to stay on the topic of the pillars for a second, there used to be only 4 pillars: Pokemon, Overwatch, Xenoblade, and Super Smash Bros. That last one's mysteriously missing, huh? Truth be told about this one, I just didn't think there was anything more I could do with it. Sure, there's speculation about new fighters and new Smash games, that's always fun, but that alone can only get so far. And besides that, unless I pay for a Nintendo Online subscription to have belt put to my ass in online matches for a humiliation ritual or something, I don't really feel there's anything significant I can get out of the series these days. Not in terms of views, mind you. I haven't really cared about that side of things for years now, but rather work I'd be happy with putting out on a personal level. Well, I honestly think that's enough doom and gloom for now, so how about I stroke my own ego for a bit and talk about my personal biases? I kid. I don't have an ego. I'm depressed. As for what I've put up this year so far, first would have to be the reading of my Hololive EM fanfic At Reality's End, released in April of this year. Ha, end. You see what I did there? You see it? Whatever, you get it. Anyway, I realise fanfics aren't everyone's thing, especially readings of them, and extra especially of their own fanfics, but in years past, I used to do this a lot because I wanted to share my other creative endeavour. Of course, nowadays, I wouldn't argue any of those fics I wrote myself are good in any way, but that's only because of hindsight and my writing ability today. Writing has always been a much beloved hobby of mine, and one that unfortunately fell off a little in recent years as I started putting more focus into writing scripts, which eventually got to me a little because, well, I'm sure I don't need to tell you this, writing scripts for videos is different to writing stories. It's a whole different type of creative endeavour, and I've always found writing stories to be far more creatively fulfilling for me. Oh, right, the whole scripting process thing. See, again, I don't have any special method for this, I just sit there and write, and sometimes I can be there for hours at a time without taking a break because I'm in a flow. And if that gets interrupted, it's really hard to just get back to it for me. Everything I write down is as close to what I would say if you were speaking to me normally, just with fewer spaces of nothing as I try to form a thought. I don't do the whole draft 1, draft 2 thing. I find it incredibly inefficient and I just go back to add or subtract things as I'm going instead, or reword stuff for it to, well, make more sense. Which kind of contradicts what I just said about being as close to how I sound IRL as possible, but trust me, you prefer it this way. In fact, the most accurate portrayal of me is in unscripted videos, duh. Like where I'm playing a new Overture for the first time, where I can sometimes be a little too honest. Domino does things to me, man. I want her to do things to me. Look, in my defense, can you blame me? Getting back on topic, as for Reality's End, that was the thing that got me properly back into writing again, having worked on multiple drafts over the course of like 5 years, and finally being happy enough with it to put it out there. There are things that I would still improve, sure, but that's just how I am. Creative work like that rarely sees absolute completion because I'm a perfectionist. However, for the sake of putting myself out there again, I had to make the call just to accept it as the best I could possibly do in that moment. That vid and the fic genuinely mean a lot to me, and even if you find the idea of melodramatic end of the world type scenarios with anime VTuber girls a little silly, I'd recommend you give it a look anyway, if just to have on the background while you sleep or something. Maybe not. There's a couple of times where I genuinely shout being my feeble attempts at voice acting. Go check it out. Second, I'd honestly have to say the Magical Girl video back in January of this year, namely because of how it felt like a long time coming for me. Alright, not that long of a time. I think I first mentioned it to friends around April of last year, and it lived rent-free in my head until I started working on it. Hell of a timeline, by the way, and I'm sure you can see why it put me off working on other long-form videos for a while. God help me if I was going to do all of this another 9 times. All of this because of a semi-long running joke about what counts as a magical girl between friends. Yeah, sure, like 40 minutes isn't too unreasonable, but it could have been worse. And that's both a threat and a promise. Overall though, I'm genuinely proud of how it turned out. I was super scared to approach it because I was afraid it wouldn't live up to my own expectations. Even I'd argue that the standards I hold myself to sometimes are largely unreasonable, being just one person and all. But all things considered, I'm pretty happy with it. Third is my lore video on the Girls of Hololive EM, released in December of 2025. I'm just really fond of this one, alright? I know a lot of comments were complaining about the sped up nature of the video and how it would inconsistently go back and forth between being sped up and not, but that's a skill issue. No, I'm kidding. That's a genuinely fair criticism, even if 1 or 2 comments were maybe unnecessarily harsh for no reason. But my whole thing around that video and it being sped up in the lore parts was the idea of going insane while listening to surprisingly in-depth lore about anime idol girls who sing and play games together. It's one of my better performing vids too, so it's a blessing and a curse that such a prevalent and valid criticism surrounds it. But all in all, I did learn a valuable lesson to maybe not do that again. But besides that, I was and still am happy with the actual content of the video, with it being the first time I got to really speak in depth about VTubing, a subject I am passionate about and have been following ever since EN's introduction. Fourth, while the release date is out of order with the next one, for the sake of the flow here, you'll have to bear with me, the video on my favourite FNAF character. It's a mini essay vid on, well, You Have Eyes, and it's one of my favourites because it allowed me to actually talk about FNAF in a way that wasn't a theory or whatever in a meaningful sense. These styles of videos on the channel are somewhat rare, usually being saved for whenever I talk about Pokemon, so to break it out for FNAF felt really good, and again, I'm just happy with how it turned out, especially with the pacing, not running long but being enough to get my point across. Short and sweet, at least for essay standards. I also self-reported as a furry, so that'll probably haunt me later. She kinda bad though. Fifth, I don't know how many of these I'm actually doing, is the My Sub review, released in August of 2025. Like the Hololive EN lore vid, this is one of those I'm just weirdly fond of again and just super satisfied with how it turned out. Like, no joke, I became weirdly obsessed with how proud of it I was that I went back and rewatched it recently. I say rewatched because I'm usually having to watch videos back in editing, so yeah. I don't really know what to say, but I'm just genuinely proud of my work on this. My side is by no means a hugely popular game or anything, though it did have a considerable wave of popularity when it released, so it felt nice to focus on something that was relatively niche when compared to what I'm usually focusing on, and give it a considerable amount of time too. Not only that, but getting to talk about something horror related in length as well, a genre I've flirted with quite a bit on this channel, and even considered transitioning into fully around my 6th anniversary, and one I just adore. My Side was the perfect storm in that sense. A nice distraction from my usual stuff, with a focus on a genre I've always wanted to bring more attention to on the channel. And ironically, it's because of that video that My Side became my favourite game that I played last year, giving it special attention in my Games That Made My Year Better traditional video, a series that I've also come to love. Actually, let's get into that now. So yeah, the traditional Games That Made My Year Better. I do these every December, and they're always the final video of the year. I started doing these in 2022. Before that, I was doing list-based videos of my 10 favourite games that I played that year. By the way, even back then, the series has always been about the games I played that year, not necessarily the games that came out during that year. However, because I'm a sentimental bastard, I didn't feel like 10 games were enough to show off how much the medium had done for me in the year, and having to eliminate ones from the list just to meet a quota really didn't sit right. So I started doing highlight reels instead, and these have become my favourite type of videos to work on. I always look forward to making these because it's me getting to look back on the games I've played and enjoyed during the year, and what they did for me, making my year better. It's no secret life has kind of, well, sucked since about 2020, so to have a form of escapism such as this, and for it to continue making things just a little easier, means the absolute world to me. It's also a nice way to encourage me to play more stuff than my usual lot, with me wanting to show off and be like, hey, look at this game I played, I'm cool too, right? My need for approval might stem from my lack of it growing up. But it's also for the sake of variety too, and, well, getting to play new and more games is always a good thing, right? Next, and while not technically a series, it has its own separate playlist on the channel, so screw you, I'm counting it as one, the music memes I put out regularly. It's no secret I love making these because, as a lover of good music, wild I know, and memes, it's like the perfect combination, letting me just be silly while showing off some great music. Plus, the series did give me my most viewed video, a video that haunts me to this day. One that has inflicted an incurable curse on my bloodline, one that may forever remain still untouched by any attempt to overcome its effect. On the topic of view counts actually, I love how my Murder Drones AMV turned out. AMVs are a semi-regular occurrence on this channel, although they didn't used to be, being way more frequent back in 2020 or so, and then going missing for a couple of years after I became burnt out from making them. Either that or the overwhelming shame that the quality of My Hero Academia AMV finally got to me. They tend to pull in a lot of views for the channel, the Persona 5 one especially, but again, that's not my goal. It's more of a pleasant bonus I guess, and the Murder Drones AMV is no exception. It was the first AMV that I have made after a few years, and it's one I tried to put as much love and effort into as possible, which, yeah, okay, effort is the bare minimum, I realise. But I do genuinely feel like it shows, and it's something I'm super proud of myself for, being another one of those videos I was just terrified to approach because of the expectations I put on myself. And for it to be on an indie animation series that really kicked off the whole scene, launching Glitch Productions into the stratosphere, eventually leading to the amazing digital circus showing in theatres, yeah, it feels really good in hindsight to have made it, and to a quality that I'm actually happy with. To keep it brief here, because I've already spoken a bit about it, but I've really come to love the Lore of Blank series. I typically do one of these a year as a sort of special attraction, having first started with the lore behind the then current mythic rarity skin for Kiriko, Amaterasu in 2023, which was all a non-subtle excuse to talk about Okami, a game I still have not yet played. Don't question my thought process, but the current style of the series started with the lore of FNAF is a Nightmare in October of the same year. These are always a fun time to go through because I guess I'm a masochist or something, and I have played around with the idea of doing multiple of these a year because I'm simply impatient and just want to do the ones I have in mind now, but even I can recognise when it all might be too much, so they'll continue to be a special yearly attraction for now. But as for the next one later this year, it might involve a certain very hungry, very pink, planet-destroying puffball. Sticking with the series I always enjoy making, the definitive Overwatch Hero Experience one. This is a shitpost kind of series that may or may not have been inspired by Iceman Brai, that I've been making in this style since about 2024, where I started with the newest tank hero at the time, Malga, and it persists to this day, most recently with Sierra. Besides the Malga one, they always happen at the end of the season, with the newest hero to, well, give me time to actually cook up stuff and get footage with them. And it's just always a blast working on them, even if the current distribution of heroes, at least one new one per season, has me questioning my sanity of, do I really want to be doing this in and out for near enough 2 months straight each time? But Overwatch and sanity damage go hand in hand, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I could go on for a long while, but to finish up this section, and to stick with Overwatch, I want to talk about the behemoth of a video that is my Overwatch 2 retrospective. A 2 hour and 44 minute retrospective on the 2 years following Overwatch 2's release. I am still reeling from this one. In a lot of ways, I consider this my magnum opus. My approach to making a video has always been to treat it like it's the last video I will ever make, even though I obviously know that's not the case. And I think you can really see it in this one, and I don't just mean in the runtime. There's skits, there's live action shots, there's personal bits, there's emotion trickling through at the end, all for a game that means so goddamn much to me, and how the experiences have helped me through a lot of things, something I'm sure you've noticed with how much of a presence it's had on this channel. I used the word bittersweet in the name of the video for a reason, because at the time, those feelings you hear in the video were all true, positive and negative. And as it seems to be the way with this channel a lot of the time, it got somewhat outdated by Overwatch then coming out of the gate swinging in 2025, going on to have a great year and even better one in 2026 so far. I suppose it was to be expected. I am just incapable of making evergreen content, it seems. But hey, maybe I'm responsible for Overwatch's resurgence. Nah, I'm not that full of myself. I would never willingly make a video like this again. It was genuinely months, years of work, technically speaking. But if the Xenoblade Chronicles retrospective I alluded to in the same video ever does happen, which would then actually be my final video, how do 3 12-hour videos sound? The thought makes me shiver. You could have kept it concise, Lunar, but no, you just had to ramble on for an eternity. It's the 10th anniversary of the channel. It only happens once. But seriously, thank you. While views have stopped meaning much to me over the years, at least in terms of how I make my videos, now just putting out whatever I want, which I've been doing for a while to be fair, when my vids do gain some traction, it means a lot to know my creativity is being seen. It's crazy, really. In the 10 years I've had this creative outlet, a lot has happened. And yeah, that goes without saying. A lot can happen in such a long time like that, good and bad, and trust me, there has been plenty of bad things that have happened to me, or surrounding me. Whether it be losing loved ones, losing connection with friends, or the world around me feeling like it's coming down on me. Plenty of good things have happened too. There can't be good times without bad ones after all, and this channel, unironically, has been one of those consistently good things for me to just put my time, effort, and creativity into. Despite what I said, truthfully, it can hurt when some of the bigger videos I work on don't do as well as some meme video I made in like an hour or two. But I just take it how it is and get on with it. Maybe the bigger ones might pick up someday, and if not, perhaps for the few who did watch, maybe it brought temporary escapism or put a smile on their face. If it did, then I consider that a successful video. In the run-up to this channel's 10th anniversary, I was hoping the channel would finally break 1,000 subscribers. Unfortunately, it hasn't quite yet at the time of making this, but that's okay. It's still something to work towards, and the fact I've gotten this far at all, that's insane to me. I realise I am just a drop in the ocean of YouTube. Trust me, I know that. But this little corner here, this channel, it genuinely means everything to me. I'm really glad I never gave up. I'm glad I'm still here, and I'm glad that you're watching, or still are watching. Thank you so much. Happy 10th anniversary to the ongoing Odyssey, still not ready to cease quite yet.